What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode. Coach Joe here with Heartletics.com, and welcome to one of our weekly Zoom chats. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where as a community, we come here, we just kind of talk. It brings the online coaching to a little bit more personal sense. And on Fridays, we record these episodes. And today we have a really good topic, which, Jeremy, do you mind kind of, sharing with everybody what we're going to be talking about today?
Absolutely. It's, you teach us that our mindset shouldn't be focused on the scale, but that scale is still there. We're still going to use it weekly. So the question is why can your body fat go up when your weight's going down? Okay. Because there's been some inconsistency over the 17 weeks I've been with Heartletics. I've been peaked and then I've dropped, and it's just been huge with the body fat up and down, but my weights, it's plateau, drop. I'm still having that drop every week. But my body fat goes up. Just didn't make a lot of sense because my pants are even getting looser. I had to throw away another new pair of pants and donate them because I had to buy some smaller ones. So kind of where it's at.
Yeah, well, I love that. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because, one, everybody's felt like that. I'm losing some body fat, but maybe the scale weight goes up, right? Maybe you don't know how like putting on muscle works, or vice versa, like in your situation where the number goes down, right? But the body fat goes up. Coach Mark, do you mind sharing a little bit, of information with Jeremy, kind of help him out?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing to take into consideration is that the body fat percentage, right, is a calculation, right? And that's different than the body fat mass, which is a direct measurement. So the calculation is based on dividing fat mass by total mass, right? So think of it this way. You don't necessarily lose fat at the same rate as you lose other weight when you're losing weight, right? So because this is a ratio, there's the possibility that you've lost weight, right? And you've lost fat mass, right? It's not that you haven't lost any fat, but perhaps you've lost other mass, to a greater degree than fat at the same time. So this ratio that's figuring out your fat percentage is saying that you've gained, because your ratio of fat to the other mass has changed. It's possible for that to happen, but your actual fat mass amount to go down at the same time, because that's a ratio. So basically you've lost fat, but your fat percentage went up. So it's confusing to look at it that way. And that's why we always say the real world kind of results. And by that, I mean not numbers, but things like clothing size, mirror view, all those things have so much more of a visceral, real impact than numbers, because numbers can be manipulated in really funny ways. Yeah. But there are, the scale also, has something to do with, the method that you're recording this has something to do with it as well. Like a lot of the home scales, for example, they're useful for us to monitor a general trend. They're not super, super accurate. They're close enough for us to monitor a week-to-week trend, but they're not giving you an ideal number. But Alan, didn't you recently kind of pursue a more specific way of, more accurate way of measuring that?
Yeah, he turned his camera off.
Yeah,
there he is.
Yep, sorry about that. Yeah, I have, because I'm certainly a numbers guy, and I like consistency. I like consistency in my schedule. And I think the hard part for a lot of us going through any transition is not overthinking it, following the program, not hopping on the scale every day, not taking pictures every day for progress photos, and sticking with the weekly process. And one of the things I noticed from some of the scales after doing a good amount of research on those that were believed to be most accurate for weight, that's the easy part, but more calculating body fat. One of the things I noticed was the only time I saw my body fat go down on the scale was when my weight went down. So they were directly, there's a direct correlation there. I appreciate that fact. However, I do feel like I'm in a position where if I gain weight, I can still lose body fat too, because I'm okay with gaining a little bit of weight at this point. So what I've done in the past, and what I recently did about a week ago, the most accurate test that I could find around is called a hydrostatic body fat test. And that's just, those of you that have seen them, it's just an underwater, you're submerged in a container underwater, and you're basically exhausting all oxygen, and they use a multitude of calculations in there to determine it. And that's known to be one of, if not the most accurate. There's another one called DEXA, but those are just not readily available, at least in my area, and seemingly not readily available in a lot of others, and might be also cost prohibitive. The hydrostatic body fat test for me was about $35. Takes about 15 minutes. You do a number of the same test over and over just so they can get a consistent and accurate number. But you're given a 3-4 page printout that just gives you a variety of information. It gives you obviously your body fat percentage, and it also will break down the lean muscle mass, bone density, the water weight. It gives you your RMR. They use resting metabolic rate versus basal metabolic rate, which there's very slight differences in those two. So it essentially would show you what you're burning in a coma, just waking up every day. And then we've all heard Coach Joe talk a good bit, and all the coaches, about NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And when you take into account that RMR that they produce, as well as some of the daily just activities we do, plus your exercise, it can give you a pretty good idea of really just what you're burning on a day-to-day basis. For me, as I said, I've used it in the past and felt it was pretty accurate at the time. Pleasantly surprised with this one. As I'd mentioned, I wish I would have done it at the very beginning of the program. I did it about 6 weeks in, or 5 or 6 weeks into the program. But I'll do it again afterwards. Once again, I think I mentioned the cost was about $35 with this vendor that I use. And I'll probably go back and do that in another 6 to 8 weeks, really, just because I like baseline. The scale is great to give me an indication of I'm doing the right things. This to me was just a little more detailed indication of the progress that I'm making, in addition to the photos. Once again, doing a photo once a week, which is outside of my comfort zone, posting scale numbers, which is outside of my comfort zone. I do those, and it's a good indication. I can certainly say the coaches can recognize more of the changes body wise for me than I can, because I honestly don't pay that much attention to the pictures, even when I submit them. But I can definitely tell a difference in how my clothes fit, how, my waistline, being able to see a little more definition in a variety of areas. That to me is kind of the biggest indicator. So I think it's really easy for us to get obsessive with a number on a scale, whether that be body fat or weight. But I think a bigger part of it is the process. Follow manage your day-to-day habits, make sure you're doing the right things, and the results ultimately, will continue to come. So you just can't obsess over that number. I think the best indication is always kind of how you're feeling and how things seem to fit.
Yeah, dude, Alan, that was amazing, man. Like you had so many golden nuggets in there, honestly. Like
Yes.
I actually wrote down some notes as you were saying that. And I think for everybody, right, whether you're a member, whether you're hearing this chat right now, right, live, or whether you're watching this on the Facebook community group, or just watching this on YouTube later, or listening on Spotify or podcast, it doesn't matter. One of the biggest things that Alan talked about was, hey, do not step on the scale every single day. I know a lot of people before sign up for our coaching program, because they'll be like, hey, why are we only doing weigh-ins once a week? Like, what gives? Don't we want to see more data? And sure, data, right, helps out tremendously well. But as most people know, stepping on the scale every single day, your weight fluctuates so much. In fact, so much that, Coach Mark talked about this manipulation and this calculation. And like, as he was talking, I saw Brian go, it makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense. It's sometimes hard, and somebody can get lost in the sauce, right? It's the analysis by paralysis. Same thing with fat loss. Do keto, right? Do this, do this, do this. And it's like, man, everybody looks good. And this guy's saying eat carbs. This guy's saying avoid carbs. Which one do I do? Right. And it's one of those things where, Alan, going back to what you talked about, you said, hey, knowing to trust the process, knowing like, hey, it's just a variable for data. I don't really care about those progress photos, the scale weight at all. I'm not focused on that. I know I'm feeling good. I know I'm looking good. Jeremy, you said the same thing. Hey, I don't really know too much about why, my body fat's increasing, and the number on the scale is decreasing, but yet I got to go donate all these clothes, right? So I'm still losing body fat. So what gives? And it's a weird sense here where, maybe at the end of the day, like, yeah, there's a DEXA, or there's this hydrostatic, submerging yourself underneath water for the best results possible. But hey, do we need to continue to do all that data as long as we're actually doing the right daily habits? Probably not. Now, Jimmy, this is completely different from when you first got started, right? You mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know some guys out there are watching this and you're like, body fat percentage. What I was 430 pounds. The last thing on my mind was body fat percentage. And you're thinking that's for bodybuilders and stuff. But when I first started, I was so heavy and obese, I couldn't use a scale at home. I actually had to go to Planet Fitness to do my weigh-ins. And then when I finally dropped down to where a scale would work, I got a Renpho, which is a brand a lot of us use. But before that, as far as tracking my body percentage, for the data, I used the Navy calculator, which Coach Joe recommended to me, which that is it takes your, Coach Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, you take your total weight, your age, you measure your neck, and your waist, and then it does a calculation and somehow gets a number. I'm not a scientist like Mark, but anyway, that's what I was going by. And then when I was actually able to use the scale, I got on there and my body fat percentage, it was like way off. And I think Alan was talking about, the weight and how it has to do with it. So I was like freaking out, like, what? And I told Coach Joe, it says this and that. He's like, don't worry about that. Just use what you've been using. It's just to track, to make sure, you're going in the right direction. So it's really just a tool to see you're making progress. I mean, I wouldn't focus on the number. I mean, maybe that's something you can focus on when you get down to like you guys, like you, Coach Joe, when you care about being 12 or 10% body fat. That's not that's not a worry for me right now. But as long as you're making progress, that's all that matters. Looking at your pictures, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, I was happy once I had that mindset, looking at the pictures every week, measuring my weight. I mean, I think I forget what my waist start was. Coach Brian might know, maybe up close to 60, maybe. I don't know. But now I'm down to like 42. So obviously I lost some body fat percentage.
Yeah, no doubt.
You brought up a really good point, Jimmy, about like, hey, sometimes there's different variables, sometimes different tools. You mentioned about, doing the Navy method. And then obviously when you eventually got that Renpro scale, the numbers was way off, completely different. And it's like, oh man, well, am I progressing? Am I not? I like to say this, and Brian, we're coming to you next, baby. So I want to set you up with a nice question, right? And hopefully, man, if you get this wrong, man, I'm sorry, but we're going to have a private conversation after this. This is all better not get this wrong, especially recording this live on a podcast. What's your protein goal?
Mine, 250.
Cool. Let's 250. Now let me ask you, right? And everybody, this hopefully is going to make sense, especially if you guys are listening to the podcast. You're so worried about the scale, right? And this tool and this measurement and this body fat percentage calculation. Brian, don't drop the ball on this one, please. Can you hit your protein goal without eating protein powder?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay. Can you also hit your protein goal with using protein powder?
Yes.
Thank you for not dropping the ball on that one.
Okay.
But I hope everybody understands, like sometimes you can take a left turn, you can take a right turn and still end up where you're trying to get to in terms of your health and fitness goals. It's the same thing, right? With the number on the scale, with a body fat percentage calculation. There's so many different ones, right? The hand ones, there's DEXA, there's this hydrostatic, there's Renpro scale. There's so many, right? Everything. Yeah, the low calibers, right? That pinches your body fat, right? At the end of the day, it's just a tool, Hey, protein powder can help you hit your protein goal, but you don't need it. You can still hit that through wholesome foods. So it's just a tool. It's just an avenue to help you reach your goal. I hope that really kind of just, kind of like shed some light, especially if everybody's kind of worried about the number on the scale. Now, Coach B, let's hear your facts, man, when it comes down to this, and give us the juice, man. Finish things off, man. I saved the best for last.
Yeah, you did. Definitely. Look, one thing you mentioned was not weighing in every day and how we talk to our clients about that. I talk to them constantly. We've even had clients we've told, because it becomes such a discouraging factor. We have them stay completely off the scale. They don't weigh in at all. Now, we like to see those trends and be able to guide how we make adjustments. And that's basically what those trends do for us. They show us where we need to make some adjustments. If we see some things plateau out, we know we might need to we need to address things. But that is really the only reason we even utilize the scales. We've talked about the different tools that we use to measure this. Coach Jimmy mentioned the Navy method, but using the measurements. Those all of these different tools have different degrees of error proneness, for lack of a better way to say it. The measurements, you know, 1 week you can measure in a different spot and drastically change the results that come out from that calculation on that Navy method. The smart scale, the Renfo smart scale that a lot of us use, or rebranding, or whatever brand you use, that's simply a bioelectric impedance reading. And what that means, really easily break down, is it sends a small electrical current through your body, and it measures the time it takes for that to make the circuit up, to return back. It happens faster with more muscle, and because there's supposedly more water in muscle than there is fat. So you complete the circuit faster, get a lower time, lower body fat reading. That's how that works. So if you're more hydrated, you're going to have a low. So hydration plays a big role in that. I've even got out of bed in the morning, got on the scale, got one reading, taken a shower, got back on the scale after that, haven't eaten anything, used the bathroom, took the shower, and my skin's a little moist and it reads a little bit lower. It can drastically change with just, you know, simple little things like that can change those readings. So not putting that too much emphasis on that, and just allowing that to be a tool that we use to trend things and see that we're going in the right direction. That's basically it. And I talk to clients about that all the time, because we get so fixated on what the scale says, and oh my goodness, I'm not losing any weight, but God, look at your body fat. And then we can point to different variables. So great discussion today. Great. I've enjoyed this, man.
Dude, this is a fire of a podcast, man. That's all I got to say. So, Jeremy, thank you for bringing it up, because we got a few minutes left here, and I want to just wrap things up for the sake of mindset, right? So, first off, I want everybody to understand, you know, what Brian said, which is another golden nugget, right? Staying off the scale every single day. But he said you can get discouraged. And like, think about it, right? Like, what could happen when somebody feels discouraged? Let's say somebody is, you know, hey, following through with our habits for success and burning body fat. So they're eating their protein, right? They're doing some resistance training. Well, guess what? They're probably going to be putting on some muscle. Muscle weighs more than fat. And so if you're only using the number as a scale as a dictator, or whatever the case may be, and not knowing the game, right? This roller coaster emotional ride, right? Hey, it could become very hard. And especially if you don't understand that your body's putting on muscle. And that's why the number on the scale might be going up. Maybe that's why the body fat's going down, or maybe the body fat just stays the same. There's all these different variables, but the best thing is just understand that it's just a tool. That's it. Somebody could lose weight 1 week, gain weight the following week, and see this emotional roller coaster ride. There's always going to be 3 different types of, you know, people and individuals when it comes to burning body fat. The last thing that you want to do is let the numbers dictate your emotions, because like, what if you are progressing, but I don't know, you see the number on the scale first thing in the morning, you thought you had an amazing week, right? Let's say we got in all our steps, you did all your workouts, crush it that week, and you got this, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to see amazing results. So you put that goal as seeing these amazing results on a pedestal, you then don't see the results that you wanted to, and then next thing you know, you immediately start feeding that bad wolf. Well, maybe I'm not progressing. Maybe, you know, I should go back to my old ways. Maybe this is failing me, or, you know, oh, I'm just going to go, you know, smash on some donuts now, right? Because you don't care anymore. So it's just like, that could all be diffused by, instead of responding, reacting, taking a step back and just observing, and say, hey, are you doing the right things that make you feel good? And you know, for a fact, it's going to make, you know, you healthier in the long term. Odds are the answer is yes. Whether you see the results or you want on the number on the scale, it doesn't matter too much at all, because when you trust the process, you're going to get those results eventually, right? Just don't put the goals up on a pedestal. Don't put like some crazy time frame to it, and just have fun along the process. And when you care less about something, odds are it's a lot easier to attract it into your life. And side note, because I do want to say this, You mentioned, Brian, about like the water and how that dictates things. Well, also simple things like going out to eat. You know, Mark, we scan what, a restaurant menu or two almost every single day, right? So we always like to educate people. Hey, if it's Friday night, right? That's when me and Allison usually go out for our date nights. Saturday nights too. It's probably not best to step on the scale Sunday morning for weigh-ins. Why? Well, you go out to eat greasy foods, sodium, water retention. For somebody that's, doesn't know all the knowledge or education about that and how it works in the body, somebody might just say, oh, I'm gaining weight. Like, oh man, I'm all discouraged now. But they don't understand, like, it's just their body holding on some excess, sodium, water weights. And within usually 2 to 3 days, your body flushes it all out anyways. And the next thing you know, you see some amazing results, because then you're like, okay, hey, cool. This is exactly what I'm looking forward to. So it's one of those things where, yes, the numbers, they're there for a reason. It's to give me and the coaches data. We can see results. We can see when to make adjustments for calories, macronutrients, training, whatever we can do to kind of help out that individual. But I'm letting you guys know right now, me and the other coaches, right, see this all the time. When somebody doesn't care too much about the data, they typically see the best results in their before and after. And it always shows because they don't care. And Jeremy, let's bring it back to you, brother, to finish things out here. You started the question was, hey, my body fat's increasing, my scale weight's decreasing, but I just had to donate all these clothes, right? Because I'm losing so much inches. Was this podcast kind of helpful, just kind of understanding, kind of like learning a little bit more? And you can see that hopefully it's not just about the data and this and this. It's more about just understanding, like, hey, how you look and feel at the end.
Absolutely. And that little nugget you put right there at the end, take that focus off there and focus on the body, what you're looking at. And with me, I mean, I got a little discouraged right at about week 10, week 12. It's kind of like, man, this isn't where I expected to be. But then I looked at my photos and it was like, dude, that's a totally different person. I mean, I'm half as thick as I was. I mean, things are slimming up. It's all getting there. That scale doesn't matter. It's all in here.
Not to mention, just putting your looks aside, what about also the progression side of the gym, man? Me and you are like having competitions with each other with the 100-pound dumbbells, right? Benching them.
Oh man,
the shoulder press.
crushing it. I'm gonna try the 300-pound bench press this weekend, buddy. I'm gonna try to hit 310 and see what happens.
Yeah, there we go, man. So like, it's one of those things, once again, to remember, everybody that's tuning in, that at the end of the day, don't get emotionally tied to the number on the scale, especially if you're getting stronger in the gym, you have more energy, you're losing, right? Like your clothes are feeling a lot better. Like that's what matters most. No one's going to go up to somebody that has a six pack and say like, oh, like how much you weigh? Like no one really cares too much. Like they're probably doing something that's going to, help them out in the long run. That's all that matters, so just whether you're progressing with the number on the scale or not, just continue to strive forward, right? I like saying this too also. We all have good days, we all have bad days, but the ones that win at the end is the ones that never give up and let those bad days turn into bad weeks, let those bad weeks turn into bad months, and eventually go back to the old ways. So
I want to quote Coach Brian on one thing: fall back in love with the process. If you get stuck and you're feeling down, stop it. Turn loose of those goals that Joe talks about as putting on a pedestal and fall back in love with the process, because that's where it's at. The process is there. Trust that it works.
Yeah. And hey, if you guys are, obviously a member here with Heartletics, the best thing that you can do, go inside the community group and just say, hey guys, I'm not progressing. Usually you're going to see so many different responses and everything like that. And Hannah and Chad, I know you guys are on here. Hannah, you actually posted in there about, losing the inches and everything like that, which was kudos to you. Congratulations. So it's just one of those things, guys. Use the groups. We're all there to support you. That's our job. And with that being said, guys, I hope everybody got some value from today's podcast. If you did, please make sure to maybe share this on your social media or share this with a friend. Maybe they care too much about the number on the scale, and maybe you just want to be there to kind of help them out, to say, hey, listen, dude, just focus on your mindset a little bit more, just a different perspective, because maybe you're progressing elsewhere that you just don't see it yet. And with that being said, this has been Coach Joe with the Heartletics Podcast. As always, peace out, Girl Scouts.